Week 7 of the All-Time Rosters franchise begins out of the AFC South. Winless Houston on the road in Nashville to battle the mixture of all-time Titans Oilers. Arian Foster kept Houston in the game, but going into the fourth quarter, that is when Warren Moon and backup receiver Derek Mason would come alive. Not just one touchdown in the fourth, but another one from 33 as the Titans Oilers dismantle their division foe and are now 3-3 and right in the thick of the playoff race. Mason with his best day of the season. It was also the best day in over a month for Hall of Fame runner Jim Brown. He would strike later in the game, but first Graham would close the opening drive with a 33-yarder to Max Speedy. But leading only by 4 with Seattle certainly in breathing distance, Brown closes the game with a 59-yard touchdown. He had 142 yards on the day for Cleveland, and the all-time Browns are now 5-1 overall. The all-time Lions, to avoid an upset against lowly Atlanta, come out with a big opening drive led by Calvin Johnson, a 58-yard touchdown here, and then the defense picks up the slack with 2 forced fumbles of Matt Ryan. The second to all but seal the game late, Roger Brown forced it, and Doug English returns. The all-time Lions, 28, the all-time Falcons, 7. One of the top headlines of the day coming in was the matchup between John Elway and Dan Marino in Miami. But the game got going with defense as Patrick Surtain steps in front of the first pass of the day from Elway and picks him off. Surtain later in the quarter would sustain a broken collarbone and is part of a laundry list of injuries for the all-time Dolphins. Miami would cap the drive 3 plays later with the Marino touchdown pass, first of the day to Paul Warfield, his 5th of the season. Mercury Morris has his best run of the year here as the Dolphins dismantle one of the worst defenses in the league in the all-time Broncos. Dan Marino, another brilliant day for the quarterback, but he is not in the mid-season Pro Bowl roster. That complete roster divulged right after the conclusion of these highlights for the division-leading Miami Dolphins. To have any chance of keeping pace with Miami in the AFC East, the all-time Jets battle San Diego, Los Angeles today. Chargers would stay atop the division with a win themselves. Keyshawn Johnson gives the Jets a 10-0 lead. Then the Charger offense wakes up, led by Hall of Fame wideout Lance Alworth. After that huge catch, he'd score the touchdown. LT gets involved to begin the third quarter, and the Chargers punch it in again. Keenan Allen reels it in from Dan Fouts. The Jets had a nightmare second half offensively, and the all-time New York Jets dropped their 3rd in a row. They are now 2-5. The Chargers sit atop the division at 5-1. In the lone international game of the all-time Rosters franchise, the all-time Chicago Bears battle the all-time Tampa Bay Buccaneers from Wembley Stadium in London, England. With 26 members of the Hall of Fame, the Bears, one of the great franchises in the league, overwhelm the Bucs early. Peyton scores his league-best 6th touchdown. He is also the league's leading rusher. And if that wasn't good enough, the next drive was even better. A 51-yarder to the Kansas Comet on a simple screen pass. That's Gale Sayers to the end zone. The Bears score in their first 6 drives of the game, but lead by 23 late in the third. Brady gives the Bucs a chance with a big one to Godwin, then a touchdown to Vincent Jackson, 2-pointer no good, 26-9. Driving to keep the game going, he finds Doug Martin over the middle, but Tom Brady goes down with a hit on Julius Peppers and would sustain a serious injury on this play. His duration of injury will be disclosed tomorrow. There were moments where the 2015 NFL MVP Cam Newton would take over a game for Carolina, and today, in the rain against Washington, was one of those days. The opening play, he comes out firing and throws one to Musa Muhammad, who does the rest himself. A touchdown here from D'Angelo Williams, who had his best rushing day of the season. And then DJ Moore finds the end zone too, and it's 21-6 at the half. But slinging Sammy Ball wasn't going to go down without a fight. Just as Newton did to begin the first half, he throws a big one to Charlie Taylor to begin the second half. And off a Newton interception, Brown finds the end zone. 2-pointer is no good, but Washington, the favorites today, is right back in the game. Brito missed the tackle of Williams to set up the Panthers. And then Cam Newton, the all-time record holder for quarterback rushing touchdowns, finds the end zone himself. It is 28-19, the team no one expected to win today. Ball is sacked, and then Washington's defense just could not stop either Williams or McCaffrey as the all-time Panthers pull off the huge upset of the Redskins Commanders. 31-19 is the final. Williams and Newton run wild against Washington. The all-time Raiders have been at the wrong end of a couple classic football games to begin the season. Another good one today against their division rival in Kansas City. To no surprise, Patrick Mahomes has been one of the best quarterbacks in football this season. 10 touchdown passes in 5 games. But the opening throw, this one is a touchdown for the wrong team. He finds Lester Hayes in the flat, who takes it back for his second touchdown of the year. He would bounce back on the following drive, 31-yarder on a 3rd and 13 to Chris Burford. And then to tie the game again off an Allen touchdown, it's Hill from 80 yards. We're locked up at 14. The Chiefs' offense, top 10 of the league, certainly are unbeatable when they've got the refs on their side as well. Dwayne Bowe catches a pass out of bounds. The officials review it. Clearly he's out, and they reverse the call and give Kansas City the touchdown. Dwayne Bowe, his 3rd touchdown of the year. Mahomes, his 3rd touchdown of the day. But the ball doesn't lie in the 4th quarter as Mahomes throws another touchdown to the wrong team. It's Willie Brown, the Hall of Famer, for a 32-yard return. And we're locked up at 24. Kansas City leans on their star running backs. Holmes played well, as did Jamal Charles with a big run, setting up the first touchdown of the season from Larry Johnson, maybe the best 3rd-string running back in the league. Raiders down by 7 late in the game and could not block their quarterback. Then on 4th and 24, Stabler, to keep the drive alive, throws one out of bounds to Biletnikoff. The Raiders lose their 3rd in a row. This one a heartbreaker, and the officials didn't help. Mahomes is the league's leading quarterback rating passer, and Kansas City will play the Chargers next week for first place all alone in the AFC West. The undefeated all-time Steelers in the desert to battle the all-time Arizona St. Louis Cardinals. The all-time Steeler receiving leader is the wideout out of Georgia, Hines Ward. Another big catch from him. He was one of the best receivers in football this season. His Steelers up 10-0. Heath Miller finds the end zone. Then an avalanche begins for the Cardinals, who lose a fumble on a weird pass from Jim Hart behind the line. It's Le'Veon Bell who would cap off this drive with a touchdown. Another interception here from Mel Blount. Then the bus would cap it off for the Steelers late in the game. Pittsburgh humiliates the Cardinals on the road, who fall to 1-5 this season. The Steelers, that great defense, is coupled with the number 1 scoring offense in football, and the number 1 turnover differential team in the league is Pittsburgh as well. The Steelers are running away with the AFC North. They play the Patriots next week. It's hard to believe that already the all-time Minnesota Vikings are in a must-win to stay alive in the playoff race. They battle their division rival Green Bay Packers. The opening drive ends with a beauty from Tarkenton, a deep one to Justin Jefferson for the touchdown to give the Vikings the early lead. The scheduled number 1 quarterback the rest of the way is Brett Favre in for the injured Aaron Rodgers, and his first completion isn't just a big one. It's a 61-yard touchdown to Hall of Fame receiver James Lofton, who gets by everybody of Minnesota to tie the game at 7. The second drive just as good as the first. A 22-yarder to Hudson to begin, then a goal line score from Jim Taylor to put the Packers back in front, but not for long. In a classic heavyweight battle, back and forth we go. Big one to Moss. Then 2 plays later, Peterson scored a touchdown. Packers lead to the end of 3, 24-14. Minnesota needs a big play, and they lean on their Hall of Fame back again. Adrian Peterson inside the 25. They kick another field goal and lead by 7. The defense needed a stop, and it looked like they wouldn't get it initially with a run from Taylor. Then the Packers go backwards, and Minnesota has the ball back. They've got to go 77 yards in a minute and 40 seconds. First down here to Chris Carter. Then they'd get a huge setback in the middle of the drive here with backup Anthony Carter, who broke his collarbone on the first down and is out for 5 games. Luckily for Minnesota, they've got an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver. One of those guys is Chris Carter. Another one to set him up in the red zone is Ahmad Rashad of Minnesota. Then the following play, a big one to Jordan, who catches the pass and is in for his first touchdown of the season. And the Vikings go the distance to force overtime in Minneapolis. The Packers receive the opening coin toss, and on third down, Ron Kramer catches a big one for Green Bay. Then Don Hudson gets leveled but hangs onto the ball. Big hit from Krause But Don Hudson, the Hall of Famer, sets up the Packers and Mason Crosby. 54 yards, it'd be the longest make of the season for him, and he hits it to win the game in sudden death overtime. You couldn't have asked for a closer make. Green Bay rips the heart out of Minnesota in their place, led by a season-high 113 yards out of MVP Jim Taylor. Green Bay leads by a game and a half of Chicago in the NFC North. The all-time Cowboys likewise have fallen behind in the playoff race out of the NFC. They battle a good football team in the all-time Rams today, and this was no contest. Roger Staubach closes the first 2 touchdown drives with long passes to Bob Bullitt, Mr. Bob Hayes, the Hall of Famer out of Florida A&M. This was no contest. The Cowboys humiliate the Rams 30-10 in Arlington. Bob Hayes, a home run threat for Dallas. And now we bring you 2 of the most boring matchups of the all-time roster's franchise primetime docket this for Week 7. The Saints, winners of 4 in a row, battled the heavily favored all-time Indianapolis-Baltimore Colts, and they look like it today as Dwight Freeney returns the fumble 81 yards for a touchdown. Manning, who threw yet again for over 200 yards, finds his Hall of Fame tight end, John Mackey, for the touchdown. The all-time Colts win this one 20-3. And while New Orleans won the big game against Tampa last week, they only have a 1-game lead in the division. Monday Night Football, and if the Jags are to stay alive in the playoff race, they've got to beat the Ravens at home in the rain from Jacksonville. Arguably the greatest kicker in the history of the game. He creates the first highlight with a 57-yard make. It's the longest make of the season and one of the longest for any kicker in the history of the Dream Season Football League. Meanwhile, Lamar Jackson, since winning the #1 quarterback spot in the preseason in front of Joe Flacco, he has had underwhelming numbers to say the least. He had his best day of the season tonight as he finds his former teammate Mark Andrews for the first touchdown of the day, and then Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail with the longest touchdown, good from 42, and then to seal it, over the shoulder to a wide-open Torrey Smith, to give the Ravens a convincing win on the road, and they are now 3-3, winners of 2 in a row, 27-13 in Jacksonville. If the Jaguars were in any other division, 1-6 overall would be basically a death note, but the all-time Colts have yet to run away with this division. They play the Titans-Oilers next week in Nashville. As we put a close to Week 7 of the all-time roster's franchise, let's check out a few other divisions. Philadelphia had a bye, then will play Dallas in prime time for the division lead. Another fascinating matchup this season is next week's battle between San Francisco and Cleveland. With a Niner loss and a Ram win, St. Louis would be atop the division. Green Bay remains the conference leader out of the NFC at 6-1 overall. They have a bye next week and have a game up on Chicago in the conference. A must-watch game out of the AFC. Steelers, the #1 seed against the Patriots, the #9 seed in the AFC. Patriots will go into that game desperate. We are near the midway point of the season, which means the Pro Bowl roster is coming out. Manning almost certainly is in there, as is the league's leading rusher, Walter Payton. And the Colts' Marvin Harrison has edged out Don Hudson for the #1 receiving spot in the league this season. Antonio Brown rounds out the top 3. And the best pass rusher in football right now is J.J. Watt, followed by Dexter Manley, Claude Humphrey, and the Eagles' Reggie White. We put a bow on Week 7 of the all-time roster's franchise with a thrilling week of football, none better than the overtime classic for the division lead between Green Bay and Minnesota. There's about a half dozen games to watch next week, with many more with major playoff significance for Week 8 of the all-time roster's franchise. That is on Sunday afternoon with the full highlights, full game episodes beginning on Thursday. But before then, guys like Jim Brown and other Hall of Fame legends of the National Football League will be debuted in the Pro Bowl reveal show right after today's highlight episode. And of course, make sure tomorrow morning to check out the injury report, as a handful of guys are out for at least a month, if not the whole season. That and much more. This is the all-time rosters franchise with Charger Dude 95. We will see you next Sunday.